He was one of the most powerful men in America, a billionaire, a tech titan, a man used to making the world bend with a single phone call. And that morning, everything was under control. Or so he thought. The deal was worth over $300 million. The investors, three influential men from the Gulf, sat across the polished obsidian table inside a glass-walled conference room. They spoke little English, but they didn't need to. They had made one request, a fluent Arabic interpreter. But now, 10 minutes before the meeting, the chair meant for that interpreter sat empty. Michael Langford's jaw clenched as he stared at the vacant seat. "Where the hell is the translator?" he barked. He got sick on the way," stammered his assistant. "Food poisoning," he called from the airport. Michael's eyes narrowed, rage flickering just beneath the surface. "Do you think billion-dollar deals wait for Pepto-Bismol?" He grabbed his phone, pacing like a lion. 5 calls. 6. He cursed under his breath. No agencies could send anyone fluent in classical and Gulf Arabic in under 30 minutes. And the men across the table were growing restless, murmuring in their native tongue. The moment was slipping. In the corner of the room, invisible to everyone but the security cameras, stood Illa. She held a microfiber cloth in one hand, her other gripping the spray bottle. Her uniform was gray, her silence practiced. Her eyes, however, were sharp. She had cleaned this mansion for 14 months. No one had ever asked her name. And now, in the room where she was never meant to speak, she was about to find her voice. Because before Illa could open her mouth and change the fate of the company, the world needed to know who she really was, beyond the rag, beyond the uniform, beyond the walls that tried to erase her story. Illa Omar had mastered the art of vanishing in plain sight. Every morning before the first executive arrived, she swept through marble halls and dusted crystal fixtures. By the time meetings began, she was already a ghost present, but unseen. That's how survival worked in places like this. Quiet footsteps bowed, had no sudden movements. What no one knew was that Illa hadn't always lived in the shadows. Years ago, she sat at the front row of a university lecture hall scribbling notes, while her father, a renowned linguistics professor from Sudan, lectured on the power of language as identity. She spoke 5 languages fluently by the time she was 17. She dreamed of becoming a cultural liaison at the UN. But then came the unraveling. Her mother died unexpectedly. Her younger sister Hannah was diagnosed with a severe psychiatric condition. Bills piled up. Dreams collapsed. Illa left school, sold their apartment, and took the first job she could get, cleaning houses. What was meant to be temporary became indefinite, especially once Hannah's episodes worsened. Langford Dynamics paid better than most, but it was never meant to see her. It saw her uniform, not her mind. Her silence, not her story. Still, Illa listened. Every contract dispute, every late-night rant, every arrogant speech. Words were her domain, even when the world forgot. And today, her silence had run its course. Because just down the hallway, a billion-dollar storm was brewing, and no one knew that the maid quietly polishing the glass was the only one who could weather it. The conference room air had grown tense, tight, like a wire stretched too far. One of the Gulf investors glanced at his diamond-encrusted watch, then exchanged a quiet word with the man beside him. Their tone wasn't impatient anymore, it was final. They were preparing to leave. Michael's fingers drummed violently against the glass table. "This is a disaster," he muttered. His voice, once commanding, now trembled beneath the weight of slipping control. His assistant stood, frozen eyes darting between the door and the clock. 2 more calls, 2 more agencies, but all they got were apologies and voicemails. No available interpreter fluent in Gulf dialect for at least an hour. Michael turned to the room. "This is a multi-million-dollar negotiation, not a damn TED Talk. Do something." No one moved. He slammed a chair back into place. "God help me, do I have to speak Arabic myself?" From the corner, Illa tightened her grip on the cleaning cloth. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from something older, deeper. That ancestral pull from the women in her lineage who had survived far worse than invisibility. She looked down at her hands, still damp from scrubbing stair railings, and up at the room, unraveling like thread. Her instinct screamed, "Stay quiet, stay safe." But her conscience whispered louder, "This is your moment." And then, as silence threatened to suffocate the deal, Ila took a single step forward and shattered the rules of who was allowed to speak. Sir Ila said gently but clearly, her voice slicing through the tension, "If you'd like, I can try to translate." The entire room froze. Michael turned slowly, blinking, as if someone had spoken from beyond a wall he didn't know existed. "You... what?" His assistant let out a small startled laugh. Bianca, the senior advisor, cocked her head and smirked. "She's the maid," she said under her breath. "I am Ila," replied steady. "But I also speak classical Arabic and Gulf dialect. My father taught linguistics in Khartoum. It was my first language." The Arab investors looked at her, intrigued now. One of them spoke a short testing phrase in Arabic. Ila answered fluently. Not a hint of hesitation. Her voice was precise, respectful, like silk stretched across steel. Something shifted. Their expressions softened. One even leaned forward, his curiosity awakened. Another gave a small nod of acknowledgement. Michael blinked again. "You're not kidding?" "No," she replied, lifting her chin slightly. "But if you hesitate now, sir, you might lose everything." Ego and desperation wrestled inside him. This wasn't part of his plan. She wasn't part of the equation. But he wasn't blind, and the room was slipping. He nodded. "Then sit. Make it count." Illa stepped forward, cloth still in hand, and took the empty seat at the table. For the first time, they weren't looking through her. They were looking at her, and she was ready. The cloth was still in Illa's hand as she lowered herself into the sleek leather chair once reserved for men in suits with business degrees and private jets. The men across from her paused, surprised, but none of them objected. Michael gestured stiffly toward the presentation slides still frozen on the first screen. "Translate." Illa took a breath, and then, like silk unraveling with purpose, she began. "Mr. Al-Fahim says he appreciates the invitation," she said in perfect Arabic, "but if proper communication isn't guaranteed, he's prepared to reschedule the meeting." Her tone was calm, diplomatic, even when she translated the investor's frustration. She softened the edges without diluting the message, a skill only someone fluent in more than just language could do. Michael stared at her as if trying to reconcile this poised woman with the one he'd passed 100 times in the hallway without a word. One of the investors posed a complex question about intellectual property rights. Ila answered before Michael could respond, her translation not just accurate, but layered with context. She even caught a subtle misprint in the Arabic deck and corrected it aloud respectfully. That's when it shifted. Smiles emerged. Postures relaxed. Someone chuckled. One of the investors even offered Ila a bottle of mineral water, a small gesture, but one soaked in dignity. She declined with a graceful nod. She wasn't here for comfort. She was here to deliver. By the time the meeting ended 2 hours later, the billion-dollar deal was back on track, and everyone knew she had saved it. The next morning, the mansion felt different. Same imported marble, same towering ceilings. But there was a current running beneath it now, buzzing whispers, sideways glances. The kind of shift that comes when something unexpected breaks through a place built to stay the same. Ila arrived early as always, but this time she didn't go straight to the supply closet. "Mr. Langford wants to see you in his study," said a junior assistant, avoiding eye contact. Inside the wood-paneled office, Michael sat behind his desk, sleeves rolled, tie loose. He looked human. "I spoke with the investors," he said. "They want you at the next meeting. Officially." Ila didn't react right away. "As what, you're made with a bonus title?" He hesitated, then answered, "As our international liaison." She blinked, then sat. "And your team?" "They'll just welcome me into the fold." "They'll have to," Michael said simply, "or they can leave." Ila studied him, steady and sharp. "Do you trust me, or are you just trying to save your deal?" He was quiet for a beat. "Maybe both. But I saw something yesterday I can't unsee." She nodded. "I'll do it, but only on 2 conditions." He raised an eyebrow. No uniform, and I don't enter through the back door ever again. A slow, genuine smile crept across his face. Deal. But not everyone was smiling. In a quiet corner of the house, Bianca hovered over her laptop, eyes sharp. She had just slipped a clause into a contract no one had time to review, and she was betting Isla wouldn't catch it. 3 days later, Illa walked into the towering glass headquarters of Langford Dynamics, this time not through the side entrance but the front. A new ID badge, a new title, but the same eyes on her back. Some watched with admiration, others with suspicion, and one from a frosted glass office on the third floor watched with something colder resentment. Bianca. She hadn't said a word since the promotion, but that morning her silence took form, a single sentence buried deep inside a 42-page draft contract translated into Arabic just wrong enough to cause chaos. Ila, unaware, greeted the Gulf investors warmly. They stood to shake her hand. Miss Illa, said the eldest one, smiling. It's good to see you again. The meeting began. Dialogue flowed easily. Ila translated smoothly, even added cultural nuance to bridge misunderstandings. Then came the revised draft. One of the investors handed it to her with a nod. Illa scanned it, eyes sharp, her brow furrowed. A line didn't sit right. She paused, ran her fingertip across the Arabic paragraph, read it again. Then she looked up. Mr. Al-Fahim, she said softly in Arabic. With respect, this clause gives Langford Dynamics full control over patents developed on foreign soil. That directly contradicts our verbal agreement. The room fell silent. Michael leaned in, tense. Are you sure? I'm certain, she replied. But if you allow me, I can fix it now, and we can avoid a disaster. The investors murmured among themselves, then nodded. Michael turned to Illa, not just with trust, but something deeper. Respect. Meanwhile, across the building, Bianca's phone lit up. Bianca didn't knock. She stormed into Michael's office, heels stabbing the floor, jaw clenched like a trap. He was at his desk reviewing a final version of the corrected contract courtesy of Illa. We need to talk, she said, voice like broken glass. Michael didn't look up. If it's about the contract, I already know. The clause wasn't authorized. Legal's handling it. That was a formatting error, she snapped. A mistake. He finally raised his eyes, calm but cold. No, it was sabotage. Ila caught it and fixed it. Again. The name alone ignited something in Bianca. You're blinded by her, she hissed. You're throwing away years of loyalty for a maid with a convenient accent. Watch your words, Michael warned, voice low and steady. She doesn't belong here, Bianca said. She's going to tear this place apart. Michael stood. No, he said. She's showing us what it could have been if we hadn't ignored voices like hers. Bianca's fists curled. If she stays, I go. He didn't hesitate. Then you know where the door is. For the first time, Bianca didn't speak. Her pride had no defense. She turned, slammed the door, and left. Down the hall, Illa stood quietly near the terrace, watching the sun hit the same floor she once scrubbed. She didn't smile, but her silence was no longer submission. It was power. Michael walked out moments later, his steps slower, heavier. When he saw her there, still grounded, he realized she didn't just survive this world. She was remaking it. The following week, Michael's voice echoed through Illa's new office intercom. Illa, can you come in for a minute? She closed her notebook, slowly tucked a pen behind her ear, and walked the now familiar path to the executive wing. Only this time, she wasn't stepping in as the help. She entered without knocking. Michael stood by the window, sunlight spilling across the contract in his hands. They're moving forward, he said. The investors. Full expansion in the Gulf. They want you to lead the cultural strategy on site. First 3 months. You'd be the face of it all. Ila blinked. In person. They insisted. She paused, weighing the offer not for what it meant on paper, but what it would cost her in real life. I won't leave Hannah behind, she said quietly. She's stable now, but still fragile. If I go, she comes too. That's non-negotiable. Michael turned to face her. Of course. Anything you need. Ila studied him, her voice even. Why me, Michael? Because I'm good at this? or because I've become useful to your legacy? He didn't look away. Both. But also because you changed something in me, and I don't want to go back. She didn't answer right away. But when she finally did, it was firm. Then we do this on my terms. He nodded. We do. As Illa left the office, the hallway didn't feel bigger anymore. For the first time, it felt like it fit her. In Abu Dhabi, the skyline shimmered like molten gold against the desert dusk. From the balcony of her hotel suite, Illa stood barefoot, arms folded, watching the city breathe. Inside, her sister Hana slept peacefully. No hospital machines, no worried eyes, just safety. Finally, her phone buzzed. Michael. How are you, really? She stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed back, Illa at peace. His reply came fast. Michael, trying to figure out who I was before I met you and why I let him last so long. Their texts became more frequent. What started as updates about investor calls and timelines slowly evolved into late-night reflections, laughter in the margins, shared silences. One evening, his name flashed on her screen. She answered. Sorry it's late, he said, but when you come back, I want to take you somewhere. Where? My old neighborhood, he said. Not the penthouse stuff. The place I used to be before the suits and stock options. She was quiet. Then that's where truth lives, isn't it? Michael's voice dropped to a whisper. You didn't just change the company. You changed something in me, and that scares me. Fear, she said gently, is the tax we pay for transformation. He exhaled. You make me want to be better. Not for applause. Just to be. She smiled into the night air. Then start, she whispered. But don't do it for me. Do it for the version of you the world hasn't met yet. 2 years later, the name on the building no longer read Langford Dynamics. It read Langford and Omar International. Illa never asked for that. But when the board voted unanimously to recognize her role as co-architect of the company's global expansion, Michael didn't blink. She built the bridge, he told them, and then taught us how to cross it. But Illa's proudest accomplishment wasn't etched in steel or glass. It stood quietly behind a wrought iron gate on the land where Michael's mansion once towered over everyone who entered. Now it was a leadership institute, a sanctuary for young black girls, immigrant teens, and overlooked dreamers. They came from neighborhoods where no was the default, where ambition was a liability, and now they were being taught to speak, lead, and own the rooms no one expected them to enter. That morning, Illa stood beneath the blooming jacaranda trees watching a group of girls gather around a mentor. A little girl, maybe 10, ran up to her, eyes wide, notebook clutched tight. Miss Illa, she said, breathless. I wrote something. My idea. I was hoping you'd be the first to read it. Illa knelt down, smiled. I'd be honored, sweetheart. Show me everything. The world needs your voice. From the terrace above, Michael watched quietly. He didn't interrupt, because he knew now she was never just a translator of language. She was a translator of futures, and where others had built walls, Illa had left the door wide open. If you believe in stories that uplift, challenge, and give voice to the unheard, hit subscribe. More powerful Black stories are coming. We'd love to walk with you.